Hello there, I'm Hayley Adams in for Esther Gitui-Hewitt. Welcome to Africa 54. Here is what is coming up. Namibians mourn the death of President Hage Geingob. Citizens and political opponents both say it's a big loss for the country. Senegalese police clash with protesters after President Macky Sall postpones the presidential elections. And the United States uses its military might and diplomacy in efforts to contain a broader war in the Middle East. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. In our top story, Nangolo Mbumba is the new interim president of Namibia. He was installed Sunday following the death of President Hage Geingob. Geingob had announced in January that he had cancer. Mbumba says he has no plans to run in the elections due at the end of the year. Trevor Carroll reports.
A significant political shift is potentially on the horizon in Namibia following the death of President Hage Geingob in office. Geingob died aged 82 in the early hours of Sunday after a brief battle with cancer. It was announced in an address by the nation's acting president, Nangolo Mbumba.
The President of the Republic of Namibia has passed on today. The Namibian nation has lost a distinguished servant of the people, a liberation struggle icon, the chief architect of our constitution, and the pillar of the Namibian House.
Mbumba said he had no plans to run in elections due at the end of the year. That opens the door for Ntambo Nandi-Ndaitwah, who replaces Mbumba as vice president. She was nominated by the governing Southwest Africa People's Organization, or SWAPO, just over a year ago to be his candidate and will remain on the ballot. SWAPO's constitution forbids making changes once the candidate has been picked 2 years before the poll is due. If she wins, she will be the Southern African nation's first female president. The party has ruled Namibia since independence from South Africa in 1990. Residents in capital Windhoek said Geingob's death is a big loss for the country.
He believed in equality, he believed in peace, he believed in all these qualities that a human being should actually live for.
Geingob leaves a middle-income Namibia grappling with post-pandemic economic slowdown, striving to surpass 3% growth, and addressing lingering racial inequalities from colonial and South African white minority rule. Under his leadership, Namibia became the first African country in 2022 to supply the European Union with green hydrogen and minerals crucial for clean energy.
Trevor Carroll of Reuters filed that report. Meanwhile, many Namibians are still coming to terms with the death of their former leader. Confidence Musariri has more.
Namibian President Dr. Hage Geingob died on Sunday of cancer at this hospital behind me. Being World Cancer Day, most Namibians woke up to this shocking news and have been gathering in different pockets in small groups to discuss and share, as well as digest this news that potentially threatens the stability and the democracy of this country.
For me, we lost that one guy who brought humor to a serious position. He was always jolly.
Then the dance moves. The dance moves.
Yeah, you know, he was that president that would always interact with the youth. We lost somebody very meaningful to our youth.
Yeah, no, the passing of the president is a profound loss.
He was actually a very attentive president. He gave opportunities to the youth.
You know, anyone going into power, you think that you'll do all this great stuff, but we know with position, sometimes there are limitations. He did what he could. We move on, we see what the next guy comes and does. So
it's a big shock for us. It's our father, it's our president.
The videos that we've seen of him dancing, and
it was a vibe.
So it was also worry, you know, who's gonna be our next president if
is it gonna be
happens?
Is it gonna be a young person?
Is it gonna be an old person? Is it gonna be a good or bad person?
At 82, Dr. Hage Geingob died as one of the youngest Namibian presidents, and most Namibians still are optimistic that the future of this country is in safe hands and Namibia will continue to shine as a stable democracy. Confidence Musariri, VOA, Windhoek, Namibia.
Well, at the time of his death, President Geingob had been receiving medical treatment for cancer. According to his office, the 82-year-old had 2 medical procedures on January 8th, followed by a biopsy. Namibia's leading opposition, Independent Patriots for Change, has called for calm and urged all party members to stop campaign activities until the late president is buried. Speaking to VOA's Paul Ndio, party leader Panduleni Itula praised Geingob as an exceptional revolutionary, an international civil servant and a patriotic statesman.
It's an incredible, devastating strategy that the Namibian people have found them in this morning when the presidency of our Republic, of the Republic of Namibia, announced the passing of our beloved president, His Excellency Dr. Hage Geingob, who was in his second term as president of the Independent Patriots for Change, and as someone who stood and contested for the presidency in 2019, it's particularly devastating because it's someone that I have actually dealt with, and it's someone who, after the elections, we maintained a cordial, mature political relationship in which I was also at times invited to State House during State House events at the honor of His Excellency as he entertains international guests and international dignitaries and presidents as well. So it's going to be a very devastating blow to the Namibian president. It's the presidency. It's the first time that the Republic of Namibia encountered such a period where a sitting president passes on almost in the final stages of his presidency.
A lot of people have said he was an incredibly talented person. Even during his presidency, he went about it very professionally. A lot of politicians tend to do other things to their opponents, but from your testimony, you just said that he reached out, he extended an olive branch. How would you describe his legacy?
I can relate to the relationship that has evolved following our contestation of the presidency of the Republic of Namibia in 2019, where His Excellency scored 464,000 votes, and I was a close second of 249,000 votes, the first ever such situation emerging in Namibia. Nonetheless, I remember being invited to State House, and foreign dignitary, an ambassador, asked me, Dr. Itula, what are you doing at State House? In our country, if you contested with the president, then you will not be even seen closer to the State House in the streets, and you will be arrested. And I clearly stated what we maintained as His Excellency the President then of Namibia and myself, is that where contestation ends, decency and patriotism commences, and we work together as Namibian to build our nation. And he was passionate about building the Namibian house, inclusive Namibian house, where no one should be feeling left out.
How would you want people to remember him?
He pronounced himself as a Democrat and believed in the succession of democratically elected presidents. And he is renowned for supporting democratical processes. And he stated not long ago, 2-3 months ago, that of course Namibians do things differently, and that whoever is going to be selected and be given the mandate to govern the Republic of Namibia, that he will be supporting such a person. As a Democrat, he truly believed in that. So he has tried as hard to put Namibia on the international map as a country that believed in democracy, and he has kept the ship floating on the democratic map indeed.
And that was Panduleni Itula, president of Independent Patriots for Change, Namibia's leading opposition party, speaking there to VOA's Paul Ndio. Well, elsewhere on the continent, clashes erupted on Sunday between police and protesters in Senegal after President Macky Sall postponed the presidential election. The vote had been scheduled for February 25th. Parliament is now set to debate a bill that would reschedule the vote for August and extend President Sall's mandate. Laila Sharak-Shaye has the details.
Senegalese police clashed with protesters on Sunday after President Macky Sall postponed upcoming presidential elections. Traffic was blocked and there were barricades of burning tyres in Dakar. Security forces responded with tear gas to disperse crowds. There were also some high-profile arrests. In video released by her campaign, presidential candidate Anta Babacar Ngom was detained near a protest site, according to her manager.
Nothing will stop us. That's our most basic rights. It's a citizen's right. We have an appointment with the Senegalese people.
It all came after Sall said on Saturday that the election set for later this month would be pushed back to an unspecified date. He blamed a dispute over the list of candidates and alleged corruption within the constitutional body that handled the list. Some opposition groups have called his move an institutional coup. Lawmakers will debate on Monday a proposal to hold the vote on August the 25th and keep Sall in power until his successor is installed, according to the bill that was seen by Reuters. Senegal has never delayed a presidential vote and has long been seen as one of West Africa's most stable democracies. The West African bloc, ECOWAS and France have raised concerns about the delay and have called for elections to be held as soon as possible. Further protests are planned outside Parliament on Monday.
Laila Sharak-Shaye of Reuters filed that report. Moving back to Southern Africa, illegal parcelling of wetlands in Zimbabwe for residential purposes is not only damaging the biodiversity of these important sites, it's also leaving the people who live there vulnerable to floods and the destruction of their property. Columbus Mavunga has more from Harare.
27-year-old Matthew Samuel Milans abandoned his home for 5 years after water levels rose to above knee level. He is now living in a communal hall provided by the Zimbabwe government.
I can say things are not okay because we are no longer home. We're being taken care of. So I am pleading for help so we can get alternative accommodation.
The Environmental Management Agency of Zimbabwe has for years been calling for people not to settle or get land in wetlands. Steady Kangata is a director at the government agency responsible for environmental management services.
You might defy the processes today, but there will come a time where water will just pass by and it will be very difficult for you to cohabitate with water. So let's ensure that we shun these wetlands because they have their own other ecological goods and services that they do provide.
Scientists say wetlands must be protected as they manage water levels in the soil. They help control floods, and when there are extreme droughts, they release water for use, scientists say. Precious Shumba, director of Harare Residents Association, claims the government is not serious about keeping wetlands unoccupied.
Wetlands should be a no-go area. No one should be settled in a wetland. A wetland is our source of water. So the people settled in wetlands must be relocated to a land identified by either the government or the council. They have no compensation that they must expect from the council or the government.
Nearly 3 years ago, flooding affected residents living in wetlands in the town of Chitungwisa. That year, in 2021, President Emmerson Mnangagwa announced that a team would help find a suitable place to resettle the residents, but so far, that has not happened. Columbus Mavunga, VOA News, Harare.
It's an age-old question. Should religion play a role in politics? Well, according to Pew Research Center, Christianity and Islam are the two dominant religions in sub-Saharan Africa, together accounting for more than 93% of the population. And there is debate about whether religious leaders and institutions can use their influence to make politics better or worse? Well, joining me now is Reverend Useni Sibanda from the Zimbabwe Christian Alliance. He's been researching the role of religion in governance. Hello there, Reverend. A warm welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much.
Talking about politics and religion, your alliance stepped into the world of politics very publicly in 2016, for example, when your alliance called for President Robert Mugabe at the time to go. What is your alliance's position today on the state of the country's politics?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Heidi. I think the issue is not about should religion be in politics, but I think it's how or what should we be doing. And our position has always been to look at how do we as church engage with the state in order to improve the livelihoods of ordinary people, their living conditions. How do we improve and become a prophetic voice for the most of the poorest and most vulnerable in community and society? Just recently we were engaged in the 16 days of activism, where we were engaging with state and state institutions to say, you know, there should be no violence against women and stiffer penalties should be held. We should protect children. So that's how we look at our role, that we become a prophetic voice that speaks to those with authority to be able to serve the people better. So we still believe in that. And that's the reason why during Mugabe's regime, we had confrontations with this regime to constantly say, let's work on the living conditions of the poor people. Let's make sure that every Zimbabwean belongs to Zimbabwe and feels that they are secure and that the state secures their welfare.
Because obviously also, especially in Southern Africa, it is no secret that the church played a very active role in liberation movements and the struggle against apartheid and, of course, the freedom struggle in Zimbabwe itself. But Reverend, can that kind of involvement on the part of religious institutions go wrong in politics? Can it often be used to not just make politics better, but also to make it worse? And what are the kinds of signs where things are going wrong?
Yeah, well, if you remember, during the liberation struggle, the church had a guiding philosophy, which was liberation theology. So there are a lot of scholars during that time. We helped the church think through what is its role. You would remember there was the Kairos document in South Africa that guided the involvement of the church. So I think the first critical thing is that the church must look at its theology, must look at how does God want us to engage with the state? What is our interpretation of biblical text in terms of our role and what should we be doing? Paul talks about working for common good, and also we know that God is a God of justice and that God cares about the cries of the poor, the vulnerable, and the oppressed. So that becomes our guidance. And what could go wrong is that if the church personalizes things, if it becomes individuals and not the church as an institution, if it becomes about material things, if it becomes where we remove the agency of the human being, that the human being must do something, the people who are in that context should be able to do something, and we take everything to God. We're waiting for God to do something. So I think that could paralyze people. That could make people not to be active citizens, but to be always waiting for God, waiting for a prophet or something funny like that. So we need to bring that agency, that active involvement of the ordinary citizen within our text and within our encouragement of their work. And also the church must be careful that it is not partisan, that it is involved in politics, which means about the day-to-day issues affecting ordinary people and how they live, but that it should not get itself ingrained and attached to a particular political party. Because what happens then is, what do you do about the other people who might not believe in that political party? So I think our politics is a politics of hope. It's a politics that is looking at how do we uplift other people. It's a politics that speaks truth to power, but maintains a critical distance. All along the church, if you go to an ordinary theological college, the pastor thinks, I must just, bury, baptize, attend weddings and stuff like that. But can I go beyond and talk about service delivery, sewages that are not working, water that's not available, food that's not available? Can I talk about corruption? Can I talk about, lack of care or budgets that are not working properly? So
Reverend, I wish we could talk all day about this. Very, very fascinating. Thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us on the role of the church in politics. Reverend Sibanda, thank you very much. Reverend Useni Sibanda of the Zimbabwe Christian Alliance. Well, still to come, how the United States is trying to contain a broader war in the Middle East. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Well, let's turn to other news from the continent now. The death toll from a gas truck explosion in Nairobi last Thursday has risen to 6. According to a government spokesperson, 3 more victims have died from their burns. Of the 280 wounded in the blast, 53 are still receiving care in 2 Nairobi hospitals. 6 Nigerian students and 3 teachers kidnapped by gunmen while returning from a school trip last week were freed on Sunday, but the driver was killed. That's according to the state government. The Ekiti state government did not say whether a ransom was paid. And weekend clashes along the disputed South Sudan Abyei region has left at least 40 people dead, including many civilians. Hundreds are seeking refuge in a United Nations peacekeepers compound, according to a government official. With both a show of military might and a stronger push for a diplomatic solution, the United States is trying to contain a broader war in the Middle East. With a backdrop of Israel's war against Hamas, Iran-backed forces in the region are committed to continuing their attacks against Western interests. VOA's Veronica Balderas Iglesias has more.
Even after a U.S.-led coalition successfully struck 36 Houthi targets in Yemen on Saturday, the United States can't rule out more attacks by the Houthis or by Iran-backed militias in the Middle East, warned National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on ABC's This Week show.
The central purpose of the strikes has been to take away capabilities from the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria that are attacking our forces and from the Houthis that continue to threaten Red Sea shipping. And we believe they had good effect in degrading the capabilities of the militias and of the Houthis. And as necessary, we will continue to take action.
But the Houthis have vowed to continue their military operations, which they affirm are in retaliation for Israel's war against Hamas targets in Gaza. More than 27,000 Palestinians have been caught in the crossfire and killed, and more than 66,000 injured, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry.
What we see of aggression, siege, genocide, and a medicine blockade on our brothers in Gaza
Citizens of Yemen, its tribes, weapons, and men are getting ready to face this aggression and do what they can.
Israel's military campaign was launched in response to the Hamas terrorist incursion into Israeli territory on October 7. Some 1,200 people were killed in that attack, and 240 more were taken captive. On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said 17 out of 24 Hamas battalions have been toppled so far.
Most of the remaining battalions are in the southern Gaza Strip and in Rafah, and we will take care of them too.
The U.S. is boosting its push for a diplomatic solution to the conflict, with a new visit by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to the region. A multi-stage proposal for extended pauses in fighting and the release of hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners in Israel is also in the works.
The president has put his shoulder to the wheel on this. He has spoken to the leaders of both Qatar and Egypt, two countries that are centrally involved in trying to broker this deal. We are in constant contact with our Israeli counterparts on it. And Hamas will have to be willing to say yes to an arrangement that brings hostages home.
Sullivan noted the deal isn't imminent and no timetable can be provided. His remarks came after the United Nations warned Friday that the Rafah border area in particular is becoming, quote, a pressure cooker of despair for displaced Palestinians in Gaza. Veronica Valderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
And that is where we will leave it for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, take good care. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.